The Georgian lilt in Maya Rekhviashvili's voice had survived immigration, poverty, and 3 years of deliberate American anglicization, and now, as tech billionaire Devon Whitmore prepared to mock it in front of Chicago's wealthiest elite, she realized that everything, her mother's legacy, her family's hotel, her carefully constructed invisibility, was about to shatter. For days earlier, the Peninsula Chicago rose above Michigan Avenue like a monument to old money and older discretion, its limestone facade concealing 24 floors of rooms that started at $800 per night and climbed to the $15,000 presidential suite, where visiting heads of state slept on Egyptian cotton sheets with thread counts that exceeded most Americans' monthly rent. The lobby gleamed with French marble, baccarat chandeliers, and the hushed reverence of a space where wealth whispered rather than shouted. Maya moved through the hotel's signature restaurant, the lobby, with the fluid invisibility of excellent service staff. At 24, she possessed the exhausted elegance of someone who had aged a decade in 3 years. Dark circles shadowed her brown eyes, and her black hair was scraped into a regulation chignon so tight it pulled at her temples. The restaurant's uniform, a pristine white blouse, black pencil skirt, and heels that made her calves scream after 12-hour shifts, fit her like armor she wore into daily battle. She had been standing since 5:30 that morning. Her shift wouldn't end until midnight. Tomorrow, she would work a double. The day after that, another. Because her mother's signature on ownership papers meant nothing when those papers were locked in lawyers' offices, contested by her Uncle Georgie in Tbilisi courts, while creditors circled the hotel like sharks scenting blood in the water. 26 months ago, Maya had been finishing her master's degree in international hotel management at Cornell, positioned to take over operations of her family's 3 properties in Tbilisi, Georgia. Her mother, Nino Rekhviashvili, had built a hospitality empire from a single Soviet-era building, transforming it into Eastern Europe's most exclusive boutique hotel collection. Then came the stroke. Massive, devastating, leaving Nino alive but unable to speak, unable to sign documents, trapped in a Georgian hospital bed, while her brother Georgie launched legal challenges claiming the hotels belonged to the family trust, not to Nino personally, and certainly not to her American-educated daughter. Maya had withdrawn from Cornell. She had flown to Tbilisi, only to discover that Georgian inheritance law and international property disputes moved with glacial slowness, that lawyers required retainers she couldn't afford, that her mother's medical care cost $12,000 monthly, and that she had exactly $4,300 in her bank account. She had returned to Chicago, to the only city she knew in America, and found work at the Peninsula through a manager who had once stayed at her mother's Tbilisi property and remembered the owner's brilliant daughter. Now she existed in limbo, living in a basement studio apartment in Pilsen, working doubles at one of Chicago's finest hotels, while technically being heir to properties she couldn't access, watching her mother's empire dissolve 6,000 miles away. Tonight's event was the hotel's annual Founders Circle dinner, a private affair for guests who spent minimum $500,000 yearly on Peninsula properties worldwide. The guest list read like a Forbes 400 anthology: hedge fund managers, pharmaceutical CEOs, old railroad money, and tonight's keynote speaker, Devon Whitmore, founder and CEO of Axion Technologies, a cloud computing empire valued at $12.4 billion. Whitmore himself possessed a personal fortune of $3.8 billion, earned through a combination of ruthless business strategy and a talent for absorbing competitors like a corporate black hole. At 47, Whitmore had the lean, wolfish look of men who paid $40,000 annually to personal trainers and nutritionists. His Tom Ford tuxedo had been custom-made. In London, his Patek Philippe watch cost more than a Tesla, and his expression carried the absolute certainty of someone who had never been meaningfully contradicted. He sat at the head table with the hotel's general manager and 3 other billionaires, holding court like a king at council. Maya was refilling water glasses at table 12 when she heard the sound that made her blood freeze. Her name, spoken in Whitmore's carrying voice. What kind of name is that? He wasn't addressing her. She was 10 feet away, but rather reading from the event program where staff were listed. Maya Rekhvi. Christ, I can't even pronounce it. Sounds like someone choking on consonants. Laughter rippled through the head table. The general manager, Robert Shun, looked uncomfortable, but said nothing. Contradicting a man who spent $800,000 yearly at Peninsula properties worldwide was not career-advancing behavior. Maya stood frozen, the water pitcher sweating condensation onto her hand. She should have walked away, should have returned to the kitchen, to her station, to invisibility. But she had spent 3 years erasing herself, flattening her accent, anglicizing her speech, making herself small and palatable to American ears. And something in Whitmore's casual cruelty, his assumption that foreign names existed for his amusement, cracked the careful composure she had cultivated. She approached the head table with the smooth glide of professional service. "It's pronounced Rekhviashvili, sir. It's Georgian. The country, not the American state." Whitmore's head turned slowly, his expression shifting from amusement to irritation at being corrected. His eyes focused on her with the lazy contempt of a man and used to serve his staff possessing opinions, much less voices. "Georgian," he repeated, drawing the word out mockingly. "Well, that explains the accent. You people really struggle with English, don't you? All those throat-clearing sounds in your language makes it hard to pronounce civilized words properly." The table went silent. Maya felt 40 pairs of eyes on her back, staff and guests alike, sensing the sudden shift in atmosphere. Robert Chin's expression had frozen into professional neutrality that concealed obvious panic. Devon Whitmore was not merely a wealthy guest. He was a relationship the hotel had cultivated for 7 years, a man whose approval brought other billionaires through their doors. Maya's hands tightened on the water pitcher. When she spoke, her accent, the Georgian lilt she had spent 3 years trying to bury, emerged more pronounced, stress pulling it to the surface. "I apologize if my accent offends you, sir. I will speak more carefully." It was the correct response. Deferential. Submissive. Exactly what the situation required. Whitmore smiled, scenting blood. No, don't apologize. It's actually fascinating. Do the thing. Say something in your language. I want to hear what it sounds like when you're not butchering English." Heat crawled up Maya's neck. Around them, guests had abandoned any pretense of eating, watching the scene unfold with the horrified fascination people reserve for public humiliations. She saw one woman, a finance CEO in Chanel, looking at Whitmore with undisguised disgust, but saying nothing. Speaking up would require courage, and courage had social costs. "Sir, I don't think," Maya began. "Come on," Whitmore interrupted, his voice taking on a cajoling tone that was somehow worse than outright cruelty. "Just one phrase. Teach us some Georgian. What's hello in your language?" He looked around the table, performing for his audience. "I bet it sounds like someone gargling marbles." His companions laughed, some genuinely amused, others offering the nervous laughter of people uncomfortable but unwilling to intervene. Robert Chin sat paralyzed, his career calculations visible on his face. Defend an employee and lose a crucial client, or stay silent and preserve the relationship. Maya set down the water pitcher with hands that had begun to shake. 3 years of invisible servitude, of swallowing humiliation, of making herself smaller and quieter and more acceptable, crystallized into a single moment of absolute clarity. She was tired. She was exhausted beyond measure. And she was done erasing herself for men who treated her existence as entertainment. When she spoke, her voice was quiet but carried perfectly in the silent room. "Gamerjoba. That's hello in Georgian. Would you like to know what else we say in Georgia, Mr. Whitmore?" His smile widened, missing the edge in her tone. "Sure, educate me. We say stumari, Syra Upali. The guest is a gift from God. It's the foundation of Georgian hospitality, which is considered among the finest in the world. My mother built 3 hotels in Tbilisi on that principle. Perhaps you've heard of them. The Rekhviashvili collection?" Whitmore's smile faltered slightly. Maya saw the flicker of recognition in his eyes. He had heard of them, or perhaps even stayed there. The Rekhviashvili collection was legendary among international travelers who valued authenticity and excellence over corporate uniformity. "My mother," Maya continued, her accent now deliberate, weaponized, "taught me that true hospitality means honoring every guest regardless of their origin, their accent, or their ability to pronounce unfamiliar names. She taught me that mocking someone's language is the behavior of small people who mistake cruelty for wit." The silence in the room had quality now, not merely attentive but electric. Whitmore's face had gone red, his jaw tight. You're lecturing me? A waitress is lecturing me about behavior. No, sir, Maya said steadily. I'm reminding you that every person you dismiss as beneath your notice has a story you don't know. I am not just a waitress. I have a master's degree from Cornell in international hotel management. I speak 5 languages fluently. I was trained in hospitality by one of the industry's most respected figures. And yes, I have an accent, because I am an immigrant who learned English as my 3rd language. That's not a deficiency. It's an achievement. Robert Chun had risen from his seat, his expression horrified. Maya, perhaps you should let her finish, said a voice from across the table. The woman in Chanel, Patricia Vance, CEO of Vance Pharmaceuticals, worth $1.2 billion in her own right, was leaning forward with undisguised interest. I want to hear what she has to say. Maya turned to Whitmore, who sat rigid with fury and something else, embarrassment at being challenged in front of his peers. Mr. Whitmore, I apologize for speaking out of turn. That was inappropriate given my position. But I will not apologize for defending my heritage or my mother's legacy. And if that cost me my job, then I suppose I'll find another one. There are many hotels in Chicago, but there is only one Nino Rekhviashvili, and I will not dishonor her by staying silent when someone mocks what she taught me to value. She turned to leave, expecting security, expecting termination, expecting the end of her precarious American stability. Instead, Patricia Vance's voice stopped her. Maya Rekhviashvili. Did you say your mother is Nina Rekhviashvili? Of the Tbilisi properties? Maya turned back slowly. Yes, ma'am. Patricia's expression had transformed into something like wonder. I stayed at Hotel Rekhviashvili in 2019. It was the single finest hospitality experience of my life. The room's attention shifted entirely to Patricia Vance, whose quiet statement carried more weight than Whitmore's bombast. She set down her wine glass with deliberate precision, her gaze moving between Maya and Whitmore with the cool assessment of a woman accustomed to boardroom warfare. The Hotel Rekhviashvili, Patricia continued, her voice pitched to Carrie, treated me with more genuine courtesy and attention than any 5-star property I've visited in 30 years of international travel. And I've stayed at every major luxury hotel in the world. She paused, letting that sink in. The owner, your mother, personally welcomed every guest. She knew our names, our preferences, our stories. She made a pharmaceutical executive from Chicago feel like family in Tbilisi. Maya felt tears threatening and forced them back through sheer will. That's her gift. She sees people. Unlike some people, Patricia said pointedly, looking at Whitmore, who see only their own reflection. She turned to Robert Chin. I'm curious, Robert. How did the heir to the Rekhviashvili collection end up working as service staff at the Peninsula? The question hung in the air like an indictment. Robert looked stricken. He clearly hadn't known Maya's background, had never asked, had simply filed her under competent employee and moved on. Maya saw him processing the implications, that his hotel had possessed someone with elite hospitality training and connections, and he had never bothered to discover it. Maya's voice was steady now, past fear, past self-preservation. My mother had a stroke 26 months ago. She's alive but incapacitated. My uncle is contesting ownership of the hotels in Georgian courts while I'm trapped here, unable to afford the legal fees to fight him or the medical bills to keep my mother in decent care. I work doubles because $2,400 monthly rent doesn't pay itself, and international lawyers require retainers I don't have. How much? Patricia asked bluntly. Excuse me. How much do you need to fight your uncle and cover your mother's care while the case proceeds? Maya did the math she had done 1,000 times, the number that had haunted her for 2 years. Realistically, $400,000. Maybe more. Patricia pulled out her phone, typed rapidly, then showed Maya the screen. I just instructed my attorney to wire $500,000 to. I'll need your account details. Consider it an investment. When you win back your hotels, Vance Pharmaceuticals would like to book your Tbilisi property for our annual executive retreat. I'd rather give my money to someone who honors her mother's legacy than spend another dollar at establishments that tolerate this kind of behavior. She turned to Robert Chun with ice in her voice. I spend $300,000 yearly at Peninsula Properties worldwide. As of tonight, that ends. Any hotel that employs staff this talented and waste them on water service has serious management problems. Two other guests stood simultaneously. One, a silver-haired real estate developer named Catherine Moore, spoke quietly. I'll match Patricia's $500,000. My father was a Georgian immigrant. I know what it costs to prove yourself in America while people mock your accent. The second, Jonathan Yu, a venture capitalist, addressed Maya directly. My firm specializes in hospitality investments. When you reclaim your properties, if you're interested in expanding, we should talk. The world needs more hotels built on actual hospitality rather than corporate algorithms. Maya stood paralyzed as her phone buzzed with transfer notifications. $1 million. From strangers who had witnessed her defend herself and decided her story mattered more than social comfort. Devon Whitmore had gone very pale. He rose slowly, and for a moment Maya thought he might rage, might try to reassert dominance through volume. Instead, he did something unexpected. He looked genuinely stricken. His voice caught. He started again. There's no excuse for what I said. I was cruel for the sake of being entertaining, and that's Christ. He ran a hand through his hair, the calculated billionaire vanishing, replaced by something more human. My grandmother came from Poland. Barely spoke English. I grew up listening to people mock her accent. I should know better. I do know better. He looked at Maya. I'm sorry. Genuinely. And I'd like to contribute $500,000 as well. Not as absolution. You don't owe me forgiveness. But because your mother's hospitality philosophy is what the industry needs. He turned to Robertson. I'll be moving my business to the Langham. You had someone extraordinary working for you and never bothered to see her. That's a management failure. Within 15 minutes, Maya had received $1.5 million in pledges, contact information from 4 billionaires who wanted to support her hotel's restoration, and a job offer from Patricia Vance to consult on hospitality training for Vance Pharmaceuticals' global offices at $200,000 annually. Robertson approached her with obvious devastation. Maya, I had no idea about your background. If you're willing to stay, I can offer you. No, Maya said quietly. Thank you, but no. I have work to do in Tbilisi. She walked out of the peninsula at 9:15 p.m., 7 hours before her shift was supposed to end. She walked out with her Georgian accent unashamed and clear, with enough money to fight for her mother's legacy, and with the absolute certainty that invisibility had never been protection. It had been prison. 3 months later, Maya stood in the lobby of Hotel Rekhviashvili in Tbilisi, watching her mother, recovered enough now to smile, to squeeze her hand, to witness the court's ruling that had restored full ownership. The hotel gleamed with fresh renovation, funded by new investors who believed in hospitality as human connection rather than corporate transaction. On the wall hung a new principle in Georgian and English. Every voice matters. Every accent tells a story. Every person deserves to be seen. And when guests arrived, Maya greeted them in flawless Georgian, her accent rich with the sounds of home, no longer something to hide, but something to honor, her mother's gift, her inheritance, her truth.